Inheritance in Python. What inheritance is? So like the name itself suggests, it's nothing but a technique of including the features or methods of previous classes or class into the current class. So all the previous classes will be referred as parent class and the current one will be referred as child class. So taking the features or methods from the previous class into the current one is called the inheritance. Now I'll explain this thing in very detail, connecting with the practical life. Before that, I would like to just tell you, if you have not seen this particular video which is about class, then it will be difficult for you to understand what inheritance is. So I strongly recommend you can search on on YouTube, Python for beginners in Learnerea, and then you can check out this 17th video in this particular playlist. If you want, you can also search just class in Python and Learnerea, and then the first video which you get is, you can just watch that. Okay, now let's try. This is the syntax, this is the text which you have to put in the search box, and this is the video which you get. Now let's try to understand with the real life example. Let's consider that you worked hard, earned some money, and managed to buy a car. Now car is your properties, so you are a current class and the property which you have is the car. Your parent in their time also worked hard, saved some money and bought a car. So this car is the property of your parents, but because it's the ancestral thing, so by default it is they are your parents, so by default this is inherited to you. I mean, this property is transferred to you. All right, or maybe we can say that you have access to these properties, right? So having access to the property of your parent is called the inheritance, right? That is simply being transferred to you. That's what called the inheritance. Now let's jump to the Python and try to understand this with practical example. Okay, so here we are in Python. This is a class which I have created. This particular class I have named as parent, and in this I have created 4 properties, or maybe features or methods, you can say it. Okay, so each of these for some sort of mathematical calculation, which is addition, subtraction, multiplication and division. Now I'm going to create another class which will be called as class child, and in that I will create a method which is called find the mean, and in that I'm going to supply self and then lists. And here what I'll do is I'll just say mean equals to np dot sum of lists, or maybe we can, let's try lists, and then over here what we can do is we can say len of lists. So make sure you always type lists, not just list, because list is the reserved word. Okay, now after that what I want is I just want to return mean. This is done. So this particular class is created. Now let's try to create an object for this particular class. I will say obj equals to child. I'm just supplying child inside it. Okay, now this particular thing is also created. What we're gonna do next is let's check out the properties which is available in this particular object. So if you hit tab, there is only one property or one method which is called find mean. Now if you have to find a mean, what you can do is you can supply a list of values, let's say this, and you hit enter. Here is the mean which you got. Now about the inheritance, so this is the child class which I just created. Now what I'll do is in this I'll put a parenthesis operator wherever I am declaring the class name, and in that I will put the class name of the parent class, name of the parent class, and just hit enter. Now this time I will again try to create the object. Okay, let me just do it once again. So here I will again try to create the object, and in that also I will say child and this. Okay, now let's try to see object, what all are the features that this particular object have this time. So you see it has addition, division, find mean, multiplication, subtraction. So if you notice, find mean is the properties of child class and remaining all were the properties of parent class. So like you just saw that the properties of parent class has been transferred to child class as well. But if you go back and if you make an object of parent class, and then you come over here and you try to check it, here you only see the 4 properties which are for parent only, but it doesn't have the property of child class. So this is how inheritance works. So again I will just modify it to child, all right, here, and just come back over here, and like I said, in addition what I gonna do is I will supply just 2 values, and let's see what happens. Here it gave us the number. Now let's try to find the mean, find mean, and in that we gonna supply list of values, okay, and then you got the mean as well. So you see, in child all the properties were transferred from the parent. I just hope that it was clear. Now there is something which is called multi-level inheritance. Let's try to understand what multi-level inheritance is. Coming back over here, this was your parent class and this was your child class. So we just saw that all the properties from parent class was inherited to child. Let's take an example. Here there is 3 generations. 3 generations are there. This is the current generation, this is the previous one, and this is the previous one. So when you see this in practical life, so current generation would have access to all the properties of his or her previous generation, and his or her previous generation would have access to all the properties of his or her previous generation. So ultimately this current generation would have access to this generation and this generation, both of these 2 generation, right? So this is what called the multi-level inheritance. Okay, this is what called the multi-level inheritance. Let's try to understand this in Python. So here we are back in Python. Let's try to create another class, which I will say, sorry, let's say class, and here I'm going to say grandchild. Okay, and this time what I'm gonna do is I will just pass it. Let's see if this works. Yeah, this just worked. Now in this current child, if you see, let's try to create another object. I will say another object, and in that I'm going to create grandchild, and let's see if this has certain features. Does it have any feature? No. I'm hitting tab again and again, there is nothing inside this. So what I'll do is I'll just pass on this child class inside this. Okay, child class inside this. So if I pass the child class inside this, what will happen? What all are the properties which it would have? Okay, let me do one thing. First I'll remove this parent from here. Okay, and let's come back over here, and then this, and then this, sorry, so over here this. Okay, now in this object, what do you think, what all are the properties would be available? Just you can make a random guess. You can pause the video and just write that into the comment section. All right, so I'll just tell you what properties will it have. It would have only one property, which is find mean, because its parent grandchild, its parent for grandchild is child, and it has no inheritance, right? So that's why it grandchild got only what it parent had, which is child, right? Now if you want to have access to this also, so first we will have to do the inheritance for this one. Okay, now if you come back over here, and now if you create an object over here, and now if you try to check what all are the objects available over here, features available over here, so now you can see this grandchild has access to all the properties which its parent or grandparent class had, right? So this is how multi-level inheritance works. So if you want, you can use find mean, and in this you can put any number, right? And then you will have the mean. If you want to find addition subtraction, that will also work. So here if you want, you can just create some other features as well. So in the grandchild you would have multiple features, right? The feature which grandchild owned or earned or created, and the feature which child had, and the feature which parent had, right? So this is how the multi-level inheritance works. Now there is another thing which is called multiple inheritance. What is the difference between multi-level and multiple inheritance? Let me show it to you. So this is something which we just understood. Next thing which we see is here the first two generation. So somehow, and this is the third generation. So somehow the features or properties were not inherited to this child, but the third child which came in, that have access to both of these two parents, right? So that's called the multiple inheritance. In this, what is happening, this particular child is not getting the properties from him which he got from his parent, right? Because in this case he was not given any property from his parent, although all the properties from both of the parent were transferred to this grandchild. So in this, grandchild is directly taking the access to the property of both of these two parents, not through this particular parent. Okay, so this is called the multiple inheritance. Let's try to understand it over here. Okay, now I'll take this example itself. So for this, what I'll do is I'll just remove this inheritance from here. Again we will come back over here in this one, and again we will do the same activity, and over here we will try to see what. Okay, so first I'll just remove this. Now I'll try this, and then I will try to check this out. Let's see what are the properties that it has. It has nothing. It doesn't have any property, right? So let's try to inherit from parent, directly from parent. You see here we are not inheriting into child and then into the grandchild, but directly into the grandchild. Okay, now let's see. So here you see you have access to all the four properties which parent had, but you don't have the access to the property which the immediate parent had, which is child in this case. So you don't have access to find mean. So how can you do that? So what you can do is you can include another parent over here, which is nothing but child. Okay, let me just see the spelling of it so that we don't make any inaccuracies over here. And this is it. Now if you go over here and if you check that out, here you got that property as well. So this is called, sorry, pardon me, I should had to show you this example in this section, but I just showed it to you. But I just hope that it is clear to you. Okay, so in this is what called the multiple inheritance. Okay, this is called the multiple inheritance, where in one child class you are supplying multiple parent class. This is called the multiple inheritance, this one. Okay, so I just hope that it was clear to you, and just in case if you have any doubt, put that into the comment section. I'll definitely try to resolve this, and I'll answer that comment. Until then, happy learning and wish you very